Hi, all, and welcome to episode 51 of Small Business Stories. This morning, I'm really excited to be chatting with the beautiful Jane Reid from the Gathered Green. I was introduced to Jane at the Rural Women's Day that I went to in Young recently. And a lot of what she shared in her seminar really just struck a chord with me. And I really just wanted to be able to give her the opportunity to share her story with us. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jane.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me. I'm a bit excited to be here talking to you this morning.
It's awesome. Like I said, I loved listening to you at the Rural Women's Day. It was, super interesting.
A great day full of lots of interesting speakers and people.
Certainly was. Right. I'd really love for you to, I guess, paint a picture for us about, what your life looked like before the Gathered Green, and I guess essentially what was the catalyst for you to bring the Gathered Green to life?
So I started, going back now 10 years ago, my life, I had two little kids that were, I think one was 3 and one was 1. And at that time, I'm an occupational therapist, so I had been working for about 10 years as an OT. But in amongst that, having children, that had slowed down a little bit. And I was sort of thinking about changing direction with my career at that stage, but wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Anyway, this particular moment, or this particular day, I was at home and I was cooking cake with my children, or my eldest, and long story short, I used a mercury thermometer to try and test whether the cake was cooked. And I put it on the bench, and rolled off and smashed on the floor. And for most people who understand that mercury is toxic, I didn't know at the time as to how toxic it was. And I sort of to try and clean it up as best as I could. But long story short was that I didn't clean it up properly, and I suffered mercury toxicity as a result. And that was, it happened quite suddenly, over the course of days. I noticed a whole array of symptoms that affected me physically and mentally, because it gets into your system when you breathe in the vapor for long periods. So that was sort of the start of this huge health journey of trying to figure out what was going on with me. And once that had been established, how was I going to, recover and get back to my normal life? Because it basically just, my life that I knew had transformed. I couldn't function properly anymore and had to rely on support from family to look after the kids. And it was a really horrible, stressful time of my life. But I remember my time saying, this has happened for a reason. We can't see it just yet. And I distinctly remember that because I thought, why would this happen to me? There's no reason for it. My life's just turned horrible. It was perfect before and I can't function now. And anyway, so
why do you say things like that?
Lady. I went through this journey of trying to get myself back on track, and a lot of it was these strange physical symptoms, but the other side of it was the mental health symptoms of anxiety and panic attacks and things that just weren't me and I'd never experienced before. So I finally sort of got to a doctor who was a toxicologist, and he sort of confirmed that was likely the case. I had mercury fillings, and I got them replaced holistically through a dentist, and then went through the process of chelation. So that's taking supplements to draw the mercury out of the nervous system. And that's a very long process, and it's slow. You've got to do it slowly so it doesn't cause further damage. So over the course of a year of doing that, I got myself back on track, and I felt better than I had for a long, long time. And so I suppose during that journey, I then discovered I experienced how toxins can impact your health, both physically and mentally. And that just opened up my world in terms of how I viewed the environment that we live in and the food that we eat. So of course, I then thought, right, we've got to eat clean food. And then I started looking for, organic produce or chemical-free produce to feed myself and my family, and realised that a lot of the produce that is grown locally is sent to metropolitan areas. Sydney, Canberra, not sold locally. So that's when this idea came up that I thought, maybe I can start a business that sells locally. And so the Gather Green started, I think, was about 2 years, maybe 18 months after that whole mercury incident. I still had little kids, so I started in the backyard, in a shed in the backyard, as a lot of home businesses and small businesses do. So we started. I mean, I don't know whether, do you want me to explain sort of the premise of the business first to people who might not know?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So it's basically it started off just packing sets, sort of seasonal boxes that people order online as a subscription, and then we would go out and deliver it. So where I would order all the produce in, we'd pack them into seasonal boxes, and I'd get in my little car and drive around Young and deliver them to everyone's house. And it went really well, and it gained traction very quickly, and I started employing staff to help pack the boxes, and then soon we outgrew the shed in the backyard, and I moved to a bigger shed and employed more staff, and it sort of just grew progressively. I expanded to go into different regions, so we started going down to Wagga. We did go to Canberra for a while, and then we moved sort of into the northern region, sort of Grenfell, Parks, Forbes, Canowta and Cowra. So it's sort of, that's in a nutshell how it all came about and what inspired me to create the Gathered Green. It was really a need for me to supply myself and my family clean food, and then I thought, well, there's a gap in the market. I could start a business that fills that gap.
Yeah, wow. And that, mercury poison truly was the catalyst, I guess, wasn't it, to all of it. You touched there on not being able to source, clean food locally, or that it, was kind of all being sent away. How did you then go about sourcing it and bringing it back so that you could actually pack those boxes?
So my main supplier was at that time a grower in Orange, and so it seemed the logistics of this business is the hardest thing because, as you can imagine, we don't have we have one fantastic local or chemical-free grower now, but at the time there really wasn't one around Young. So Orange was the closest I could find. We used to go and take a trailer to Cowra and meet the grower at Cowra and put all of the boxes on the trailer and bring it all back, rain, hail and shine. And so that's sort of how it all started. And then we realised that people, when they're getting a seasonal box, there's always a limitation with what you can grow within your region, unfortunately, and people do want to have bananas and different things that are from other growing regions. So that's when I tapped into the organic market in Sydney. So we whatever we can't get locally, we supplement from Sydney, and that comes down on the Dorman's truck that comes to Young 3 days a week, and that works beautifully now. So we get our local growers from around Hilltops. They deliver to our store, and then we get whatever else we need from the organic markets in Sydney, and they bring it down on the Dorman's truck. So I feel like after nearly 10 years, we've got the logistics sorted out, and it's pretty smooth sailing now. So I mean, there's certain times of the year where, seasonally it's more difficult, but that's what customers get an understanding of that they don't normally get when they shop at a supermarket. You see, there's usually available 12 months of the year, and that they lack that understanding. Well, that's actually not in season. It's come from miles and miles away, or it's been cold stored for or overseas. Yes, it's amazing when you actually start looking at it that a lot of oranges are imported from the US and things like that. So that's one benefit of having a business that does actually use seasonal produce, and being organic, it's not sprayed with things that keep it deliberately staying fresh for a year, which is what happens to a lot of conventional produce. So you're getting produce that's fresh in season, and you start to really understand the cycle of what's in season, what's not.
And I think that that's a really important part of understanding your food, is going back to what it used to be like, say, like in our grandparents' day of eating seasonally, and learning to preserve foods in a way so that you can potentially use them out of season and things like that. Because, yeah, I have seen so much in, like you said, in our supermarkets where you look at it and you think the country that we live in, that it's so abundant in relation to, our fruit, fresh fruit and vegetables and our meat and our dairy and all of those sorts of things, yet we are still seeing imported goods.
It's crazy. I don't understand
Mm-mm.
how and why, but I think a lot of it is that these places aren't making consumers aware that it's imported enough. They're not, people just unknowingly buy what they see in front of them without actually realising. And I think most people, if they realise it was imported, particularly fresh produce, I'm not sure that they would buy it. But it's not advertised unless you really look. So in fine print,
Yes.
So I think, and understanding beyond just the fact that we should be supporting local farmers, which is the most important things we need to be doing, educating people about, well, actually the nutrient density of that food, simply because it's been the length of time since it's been picked or grown and packed, stored and put on the shelves, is so long and retracted that it's the nutrient density is minimal. You're getting something that like a piece of fruit or vegetable, but when you really looked into the micronutrients in it, it diminishes so much over time. So I think understanding that as well is really important. So it's not just we should be supporting local, but well, you need to buy the best produce that's providing you the best nutrients, because otherwise, why not just buy some processed food, that packaged food on the shelf? It's not a lot different. It might make you feel better that you think you're eating good fruit and veggies, but really, is it? That's what I question people. And also the aspect of, well, how much chemical has been sprayed. I know that mangoes that get imported from overseas have to be radiated. And so that's another aspect. I think, well, there's a lot of things people don't realise, that there's, that because there's biosecurity issues with importing certain foods, that there's a whole process of things that happen to them that the consumer's just not made aware of. And I think if they were made aware of it, they'd make a more informed decision about what they're doing and what food they're eating.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's just informing yourself about, where your food's coming from, what's actually happening to it. Is it really, and like, as you said, people think that they're eating really well. Like, yeah, like I eat a, diet of lots of fresh fruit and vegetables and meat and things like that. But if they're not really sure as to the process that's, gone on to create that fruit and vegetables and meat, is it actually really good for them?
Yeah, and I think that's what I really learnt a lot through this journey. Initially, I was all about organic, it's got to not have chemicals. That's all I was thinking, I don't want things that have been sprayed, which is true. I mean, I think that's really important, that if you can buy produce, to me, it just makes common sense, doesn't it? Why do we want to ingest chemicals if we don't have to? But the other deeper aspect is that the nutrient density, and that's what I learned about the food as medicine and the role of food as in helping your body heal the way it should naturally, is that food has to be high in the micronutrients and the amino acids. All the essential amino acids that we need to function properly come from, we can't create them in our body naturally. They come from the food that we eat. So if that food that we're eating, either through meat, that's the cow or the sheep that's been grazing on the grass, it's got the essential amino acids, or it's directly from the fruit and veggies, it's got to come from our diet. So I think that's digging in deeper and saying, right, well, what makes food nutrient dense or more nutrient dense? It's largely to do with the soil that it's grown in. And that's when you go, right, let's get into a deeper, aspect of this. And that's what I'm really passionate about now. It's about the health of soils and making sure that they're microbial rich soils, that if you've got microbial rich soils, then all of those micronutrients become bioavailable in the plants that we are consuming. So there's a big movement now to try and encourage people, farmers, to really consider the soil health and change their practices. So they are promoting microbes in the soil and using things like compost and biodiversity through multi-species pastures that create that biodiverse microbiome in the soil. So that's where I've sort of now launched more into and we've transitioned our farm to what we sort of use the term regenerative, but basically it's just looking after the soil, number one. So all of our practices are designed to look after the soil first, and then that promotes the better nutrients in the grasses and the pastures, and then you're growing healthier livestock.
Yeah, and that too is, I guess, another really big issue that's at the forefront of people's minds at the moment with, I mean, I haven't delved a lot into it because, some of it's scare tactics, but I've been reading there's been notices about chemicals and things in our meat.
Yes.
And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like whatever happened to fresh food being fresh food?
I know, and I get really concerned about that too, because I think you might be referring to some particular chemical that's meant to be reducing
greenhouse gases or something, is it?
Greenhouse gases it's from cows' emissions, yes. And this is where it gets really complex, because what is that supplement that they're feeding? It's not a natural supplement. It's I think it's a particular supermarket that's saying that the cows that they're purchasing have been given this supplement, so they're contributing to climate change management. But it's all happening so quickly, and we don't know, well, what's the impact of that supplement in the meat that we're eating? And it's like everything, it takes time to work this out. So I hope we don't get to 10 years down the track and realise it's something that's contributing to a major health crisis. So I think at the end of the day, the key is to coming back to the emissions from cows too. I'm very passionate at talking about cattle that are grazed, or livestock that are grazed in a regenerative system in the right way are actually contributing to the sequestration of carbon in the atmosphere. So the cows are actually a really important way of reducing emissions, if you're wanting to consider that aspect. And it's about the management of livestock and how we're raising these cattle for consumption, rather than the feedlot practice, which is grain fed and emissions, and there's no contribution to sequestering and improving the ability of the land to sequester carbon. So this isn't talked about enough. Cows are bad, and eat and become a vegan and eat soy-based products and that are full of chemicals most of the time, and monocultured, things that it just doesn't make sense. It drives me crazy that we're pushed down that avenue, and that's often because there's ulterior motives associated with that organisation. So everyone just needs to take a breath and go, okay, let's look at this logically and rationally. And
sometimes that can be hard, to wade through the noise of, social media and, TV and traditional streams of media and marketing and all of that kind of stuff. To wade through all of that noise sometimes is really difficult, and the scare tactics and the fear mongering that happens, and
and that's it. I think people, have fed a lot of fear because they know that can change behaviour, that if they're wanting people to consume something or whatever it might be, if you push a fear line, then people will respond. And so that's why I say, let's just take a breath and look at it rationally and logically. And at the end of the day, it just makes common sense to eat simple, clean food that's grown the way nature intended. It just makes logical sense. And it makes logical sense that if we're not doing that, then that would impact on health, doesn't it? Like if you're consuming food that doesn't have the nutrients in it, that's covered in chemicals and fungicides, pesticides, all the rest of it, it would be logic that would have an impact on health, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it is. So just let's just simplify it as much as we can and say, well, let's get back to basics and try and eat as cleanly as we can, and also try and have, there's the other aspect of trying to eat a variety of food. I think a lot of us get sort of caught in just buying the same type of food because you get into habits, the type, same carrots and potatoes and whatever it might be, one green, which is great. But like, I encourage people to try different things, try beetroot and fennel, or, things that are colourful are really great for getting the array of micronutrients, and also the different microbiomes from those different varieties of fruits and veggies are really important, because it's the diversity that is so important when it comes to the biome that is in our system that we're getting from our food. So that's the other aspect I really like to encourage people to try and get out of your comfort zone, and encourage your kids to try different things as much as you can. I know it's hard.
It is if you make it hard. Like, I know we've taken our kids on holidays. I do remember one in particular. We went to Fiji, and I said to the kids, we're in a different country. They're presenting different food to us every day. My challenge to you is to try at least just one new thing every single day. And if you taste it and you don't like it, then that's fine. Just pop it on the side of your plate. But you won't know unless you try.
Exactly. Yeah. And often they're surprised at how much they do enjoy it. And I think so. And I think it's
continue.
I think it's about building up their palate too for different flavors, isn't it? Like, even if they try it once, and they'll come back to it later, maybe later in life. It's just continually just offering things to kids that are different, getting them involved. I feel getting them involved in growing and cooking, like that's the aspect, is getting kids back to the origin of food is really important. I think we're all sort of being deliberately dissociated with that on purpose, that we just go to a supermarket and grab the food and have no regard. I know there's plenty of kids in metropolitan areas that probably have no clue about milk, and even the origins of milk or something, that's so sort of distanced from that. Disconnected. Exactly. So trying to get kids back, even if it's just growing one tomato plant at home and just seeing, they just love seeing it grow and seeing the flowers and then seeing them turn into little tomatoes, having that understanding, and then eating what they've grown, and noticing the difference in flavour of something they've grown at home as opposed to something at the supermarket. Getting them involved in cooking, and understanding what we can make with beautiful, simple, food that's from scratch, rather than just, convenience food that we've been told.
That's for sure. Now, honestly, I could sit here and talk to you about this all day. Like, it's so fascinating. But I know that you're a busy woman and you've got loads to do. I guess, where can people start looking? Where are the places that you started looking for information to inform yourself about, if they're not local to our area and they can't access your store, where can they search for information to support them on their journey to creating better choices for themselves?
I mean, there's so many sites now that are available. I mean, there's a big movement that started in the US called Farmer's Footprint, and they've started in Australia as well. But a doctor called Dr. Zach Bush initiated that, and their role is to try and, not only educate consumers but also help farmers transition to regenerative practices. So just off the top of my head, Farmers Footprint are a fantastic resource. Locally, we have people like Rhonda Daly that has been doing this for a long time. She's been ahead of her time in terms of understanding soil health and science, and developing beautiful composts. And we've got Charlie Arnott also. He's been doing this for a long time, and his wealth of knowledge. And there's so many people in our community. We've got a great little grazing group that's just started up locally, where we catch up every few months. And that's beautiful to connect with like-minded people. But I think if people outside of this region want to do something similar, start their own little grazing groups. Just get on the internet and explore what resources are out there to try and get a better understanding of, this focus on soil health and how it all just really starts from there and moves up. So yeah, there's plenty of resources. It's really just thinking about it, and then it's like anything, starting to think about it, and then you start to put time and effort and intention.
Yes. Yeah. So for those of us locally, where can we find you and how do we get access to your beautiful produce?
Okay, so we are based, we've got a shed store in Young. It's in the rear lane up from the IGA car park. So it's behind the back of the Bush Chemist, and we're open Tuesday all day and Friday mornings. We can send out, people can come be a member of our newsletter each week that gets sent out, so people can contact me if they want to be added to the newsletter that just tells them what's available each week. We also take the truck out to delivery runs where we meet people at particular pickup spots each week. So we go on Wednesday, we head to Grenfell, Forbes, Parks, Canal Drakara, and then Thursday we go to Tamora, Wagga and Cootamundra. So we sell now, we do sell still the seasonal boxes, but we also just, people come to us and pick and choose what they want. So they've got that flexibility of just choosing whatever, making their own box or just choosing bits and pieces. We also sell our lamb and beef. And we sell stock and piggle pastured pork and certified organic local chicken. And Bungari eggs and Junie pastured eggs and a few different pantry items that are sort of local organic things that people might be interested in. So we're sort of trying to make it a little bit more of a one-stop shop, and we're never going to array of things that a supermarket has, but just those essential things that we also offer biodynamic organic dairy as well, which has been popular for particularly for my kids, that I allow them to have the ice cream. So we've got a big tub of biodynamic chocolate ice cream that I wouldn't normally allow in the house, but I'm happy with it because it's clean. So that's, and I think that's about all. I don't know, is there anything else that I needed to tell you about the business?
No, I think that's it. I think you have just touched on it so beautifully, and really, I think, helped us to really open our minds and start thinking about where our food's coming from and what, nutrients it is actually supplying to us. So thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, you too. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
And I will drop all of the links to your website and social media pages and that in the comments. So check it out, guys. And if, like I said, if you're not local to this area, take yourself on your own little journey and just, see what you can find and start making some little changes in your own, in your own shopping experiences to try and integrate some more, organic or, some better produce in your home. So thank you again, Jane.
Thanks, Sarah. See